Chapter 1985. Let's go. Xiao Qin waved his hand slightly. Looking at Jingyu accompanying the child, he raised his eyebrows slightly. He was silent for a moment, but he didn't say anything. Jingyu knew that she was about to leave the child. Jingyu must be feeling bad in her heart. She didn't stop her. She quietly accompanied Jingyu and the child. They waited for the whole night. When the child woke up, they helped him put on his clothes. Outside the inn, when they were about to leave, Little Watermelon was expressionless, but Little Potato was wailing loudly. Jingyu almost couldn't hold back and wanted to carry Little Potato away. Fortunately, she was stopped by Xiao Qian. They left resolutely. But these pitiful secret guards, who were all grown men, stiffly carried their children and looked at each other in dismay. What should they do if the young master kept crying? A few secret guards held the child and looked at each other. They silently took out things for Little Potato to play with. They either let him eat something or let him cry. Otherwise, they put the two children together. Little Potato was really too noisy, but this was what a child should be like. Little Watermelon was different. He would occasionally cry, either because he had pooped, or because he was hungry, or because he wanted to do something, but no one paid attention to him. He was much better than Little Potato. With a child in tow, the secret guards couldn't be separated. Thus, they slowly made their way to the imperial city. Jingyu and Xiao Qian were heading towards Miaojiang. They just had to pass through the grassland. Miaojiang had been banished by the people of the mainland to a very desolate place because of the cultivation of venomous insects. Not only was the journey long, but the border was also heavily guarded. If they didn't go in, the people of Miaojiang naturally wouldn't come out. Jingyu and Xiao Qian didn't want to alarm the people of Miaojiang. Since they were going in to steal people, it was better to be careful. If they could sneak in, of course, it would be good. After walking for a while, we will reach the last city at the border. From the main road, a few figures slowly appeared. The familiar faces, the familiar robes, these people were naturally Xiao Qian and Jingyu. The group was all dressed in black. As for why they were dressed in black, ninth sister-in-law, why are you always dressed in black like ninth brother? Qinggu looked at Jingyu, who was also dressed in black, and suddenly frowned. Because black clothes aren't dirty, Jingyu looked at Qinggu very seriously and said, "Do you like to wash clothes every day?" Qinggu silently shut up. What she said made sense. However, no matter what clothes she wore, Qinggu didn't seem to have seen Jingyu wash clothes. It was also because of this incident that Qinggu also changed into black clothes. Qinggu looked at the four people who were dressed in black, while he was dressed in a different color. He inexplicably felt that he didn't seem to be the same kind of people, so Qinggu decisively changed. Needless to say, after wearing black clothes, Qinggu himself had a cool feeling. At this moment, the five of them were walking on the road. They let the horses drink water and eat grass. After resting for a while, they continued on their journey. These few days, it was really comfortable. They didn't meet any enemies, but they met a group of bandits. However, after the bandits jumped out, they saw that Jingyu and others didn't even have a bag on them. They really didn't know what to rob. Chapter 1986. They had inexplicably bypassed Jingyu's group and robbed the carriage behind Jingyu and Xiao Qian's group. This incident was a huge blow to Jingyu. They were actually despised by the bandits. Originally, Jingyu had been sleeping for a year. Now that she finally came out, it was time for her to show off her skills. However, she did not expect that she did not even have a chance to fight. Jingyu had not fought for a long time, and her hands were itching for a fight. This was the last city. After passing through this city, they would reach the border. After walking out of the border, they would enter the wilderness under the jurisdiction of the five people. If they continued to go deeper, they would reach the Miaojiang. Looking at the city in front of them, Jingyu frowned deeply. This city was really dilapidated. No one came here all year round. It is normal for it to be so desolate. Xiao Qian narrowed his eyes slightly. After looking at the city in front of them, he unconsciously frowned. "Let's go," Jingyu said very calmly. Step by step, she walked towards the city wall. Maybe it was because the people here had not seen anyone for a long time, or maybe it was because Jingyu and her group were dressed too strangely. In any case, they attracted the attention of these people. When Xiao Qian and Jingyu entered the city, They rode on their horses and found that these people had been staring at them. These people, why do they keep staring at us? Jingyu frowned and turned to look at Xiao Chun and asked. I don't know. Xiao Chun was silent for a moment before answering. Is there something on our faces? In order to cover her face, Jingyu put on a mask. Xiao Chun also put on a mask. Jingyu did not hide that she was a woman. However, she carried a longbow on her back and wore black gloves on her hands. For some reason, Jingyu looked like a female bodyguard in this state. On the other hand, Qinggu was acting like a manservant. Only Xiao Chun had a lofty look on his face. It was as if he was the leader of a sect on a trip. Just look at this posture. Just look at this aura. It was simply impossible for the crowd on the street not to watch. So, why are these people looking at us like that? Jingyu originally thought that it was because they were riding horses, so she casually asked everyone to dismount. But now that everyone had dismounted, the situation in front of her didn't seem to have changed. The people who should be watching continued watching until Jingyu, Xiao Qian, and the others entered the inn. Guests, are you here to eat or stay? As soon as Jingyu and Xiao Chun walked in, the shopkeeper's eyes lit up as if he had met an important guest. He warmly invited them in. Jingyu looked at the shopkeeper and felt that this place was like a town. Rooms. Prepare some food first. Jingyu said straightforwardly. Just as she was about to give them 5 rooms, Xiao Chen, who was standing at the side, said very quietly, for rooms. The shopkeeper was stunned. He looked at Xiao Chen and then at Jingyu, the only woman in the group. He immediately nodded and decisively gave them 4 rooms. Jingyu stood at the side. When she saw this scene, Jingyu immediately frowned. Why did she feel an incomparably strange feeling? She was very unhappy. Only when the delicious food was served did Jingyu feel a little better. Satisfied, Jingyu ate the food. Chapter 1987. It was just that. She suddenly felt that it tasted awful. It wasn't even as good as Xiao Qin's porridge. She was probably really spoiled. How boring. Jingyu sighed deeply. After casually eating a bit, the shopkeeper eagerly poured tea for them. He looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun before asking, May I ask where you're going? Nothing. Jingyu turned to look at the shopkeeper. We're just going to look for something. Wasn't it looking for something? Looking for something like Madame Nye? Haha. Oh. The shopkeeper said considerately. I see that you're from out of town. The city hasn't been peaceful these past few days, so please don't go out at night. Peaceful? When Jingyu heard this, she instantly raised her brows in curiosity. She looked at the shopkeeper strangely and asked, Could there be thieves in the city? Jingyu's brows instantly lit up when she said this. Her hands had been itching for a long time. It'd be great if there really were thieves. The shopkeeper sighed helplessly. The city hasn't been peaceful. I don't know what's going on exactly, but in the past 6 months, there have always been people going missing for no reason. Since the few of you are just passing by, you should rest early and look harmonious. After the shopkeeper finished speaking, he put down the teapot and told her to call if she needed anything. Jingyu accepted politely. When she turned around, her eyes were filled with interest. You were. Xiao Chen looked at Jingyu and frowned. After a deep sigh, he knew that Jingyu had thought of something fun again. Third Xing, go and find out what the shopkeeper is talking about. Xiao Chan turned to Third Xing and said calmly. Third Xing nodded respectfully. Wait. Hearing this, Qinggu hurriedly pulled Third Xing back and said, Leave things like gathering information to me. Qinggu stood up righteously. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others frowned when they saw Qingji's eagerness. Qinggu must be joking, right? Ninth brother, don't worry. I'll definitely bring the news back. Qinggu said seriously. After that, he ran away, leaving Xiao Chun and Jingyu in a dilemma. Master, do you really not need me to go and take a look? Third Xing knew that Qinggu did not know any martial arts. If he went out like this, wouldn't it be too dangerous? Nothing. Xiao Chen silently raised his hand and picked up the teacup. He took a sip and said, Although Qinggu doesn't know martial arts, he has a lot of good things on him. Ordinary people can't hurt him. Good things. When Jingyu heard Xiao Chen's words, she blinked her eyes curiously. Xiao Chen silently raised his eyebrows and said, Qinggu took a lot of things from the Miracle Medical Valley's warehouse. Jingyu's face darkened when she heard this. So it was like that. Since Qinggu had volunteered to scout, Jingyu and Xiao Chun naturally waited here. However, after waiting for a long time, Qinggu did not return. Just as Jingyu was thinking about whether to send someone to take a look, she realized that the originally quiet street had suddenly become chaotic. What's going on? Jingyu, Xiao Chan, and the others were instantly attracted to the commotion. Jingyu furrowed her brows tightly. Chapter 1988. Looking at the people on the street running in the same direction, they could vaguely hear someone shouting something about a monster and murder. Jingyu and Xiao Chun immediately frowned. They stood up abruptly and rushed out. The shopkeeper was a kind person. When he saw Jingyu and the others running out, he hurriedly called out to Jingyu and the others. However, Jingyu and Xiao Chun ignored him and ran out. The shopkeeper was also anxious, but he didn't chase after them. After all, they were strangers. Naturally, he wouldn't risk his life to chase after them. Jingyu and Xiao Chun ran back when they saw the crowd. However, Jingyu and Xiao Chun rushed forward. When they saw Jingyu and Xiao Chun, they knew that they were strangers. Therefore, no one paid any attention to them. When Jingyu and Xiao Chun arrived at the scene of the incident, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. There were two corpses lying on the street. One of the corpses was completely torn apart. The other corpse was that of a child. Qinggu was squatting beside the child. His face was full of anxiety, as if he wanted to save the child. Qinggu, Jingyu suddenly called out. When Qinggu turned his head and saw Jingyu and Xiao Chun, his eyes lit up. Ninth brother, ninth sister-in-law, come and help me. Jingyu felt very conflicted when she heard Qingji's call. However, she still ran over and looked at the dying child in Qingji's arms. It's useless. Jingyu looked at the child and shook her head slightly. Looking at the child's chest, which was almost completely caved in, she did not need to think to know that the child's organs were all shattered. It was obvious that he had been crushed by a great force. The mess in front of her and the blood on the ground made Jingyu frown. What's going on? Jingyu frowned when she saw the situation in front of her. Qinggu tried his best to save the child, but he couldn't. He could only watch as the child died with his eyes wide open. It seems that something that was locked up here escaped. I came too late and didn't see what it was. I only saw the child for a moment, but he was already like this. Qinggu sighed deeply. He reached out to close the child's eyes and wiped the blood off his hands. I feel that this town is very strange. Jingyu frowned and turned to look at Xiao Chun. This is supposed to be the border, but why don't I see any soldiers? Why are the people in this town so strange as well? Ninth sister-in-law, the soldiers and officials here left 3 months ago. Qinggu heard Jingyu's puzzled words and said, I heard that half a year ago, a small plague suddenly appeared in the town and a small number of people died. But later, they were controlled. But what they didn't expect was that after that, ghosts suddenly appeared. They came out in the middle of the night to eat people, and they couldn't catch them no matter how hard they tried. The officials were afraid and ran away with their men, leaving these people here. Ghosts? Jingyu frowned when she heard Qingji's words. I heard that there were ghosts that ate people. Many people were scared out of their wits and committed suicide by hanging themselves in the river. People went to salvage the bodies or put the bodies in the mourning hall. However, they were all eaten by the monsters the next day, Qinggu said with a deep frown. Chapter 1989. I don't know if this is true or not, but looking at this, it seems to be true. Qinggu looked at the mess on the ground with a serious expression. What kind of monster eats humans? Jingyu couldn't help but think of that scene in her mind, and her stomach started to churn. Master, look! Just as Jingyu was deep in thought, Third Xing suddenly pointed at the spider crawling on the ground and called out. That was a colored spider. With such a bright color, one could tell that it was not a good thing with just one look. Poisonous spider. Jingyu narrowed her eyes slightly. Miaojiang. Xiao Chun slowly narrowed his eyes. Jingyu's heart trembled violently. Could it be that the things that happened in this town were related to Miaojiang? Looks like. We need to stay here for a few days. Jingyu looked up slightly and looked at the sky that was gradually turning dark. She narrowed her eyes coldly. She really wanted to see what kind of monster had such abilities. Xiao Chun and Qinggu naturally didn't have any objections. However, looking at the two corpses, they thought for a while and called someone to clean up the place. After returning to the inn, the owner of the inn saw that Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest had returned. He instantly heaved a sigh of relief. When he heard that Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest were going out at night, he was instantly stunned. What's wrong? Is it inconvenient to leave the door open for us to come back? Jingyu looked at the owner's pale face and asked curiously, "Dear customers, this lowly one can tell that you're not ordinary people, but that monster is too powerful. It's best if you don't get involved and leave as soon as possible," the shopkeeper said earnestly. "How do you know that this monster is very powerful? Could it be that you've seen it before?" Jingyu's dark eyes looked at the owner quietly. Seeing that the owner's expression changed after hearing Jingyu's words, Jingyu's eyes lit up. It seemed like there was a chance. "Miss, I'll say the same thing again. You should leave as soon as possible." The owner didn't say much and turned to leave. Jingyu looked at the owner and touched her chin curiously. She had a thoughtful look on her face. There must be a big problem. Otherwise, why would he be like this? But what exactly happened? Needless to say, Jingyu's curiosity was piqued. As the saying goes, curiosity killed the cat. But she was a human. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. But what kind of place was this? Jingyu had to go there. She also had to investigate this matter. Jingyu really wanted to see what kind of monster it was that had such abilities. Jingyu and Xiao Chun opened their eyes at the same time. In this dark room, Jingyu smiled faintly at Xiao Chun. Her dark eyes were filled with excitement. This long-awaited feeling really made Jingyu's blood boil. Jingyu and Xiao Chun changed their clothes and prepared their equipment before stepping out of the inn. Qinggu, who was next door, was also dragged out by Interrogation Officer 3 and Interrogation Officer 15. Qinggu had a tired look on his face, but he still accepted his fate and followed Xiao Chun and Jingyu out of the inn. Chapter 1990. There was not a single person on the street. The street lamps swayed in the wind, and it was horrifying. The moment Qinggu walked out, half of his tiredness disappeared. He quietly walked between Interrogation Officer 3 and Interrogation Officer 15, seeking a sense of security. Interrogation Officer 3 and Interrogation Officer 15 looked at Qinggu and their mouths twitched. Jingyu admired the night view. It really was a moonless and windy night to kill someone. For some reason, Jingyu suddenly felt like practicing. The atmosphere was really good. Just as Jingyu and Xiao Chun were walking, they suddenly saw a shadow flash by. Jingyu and Xiao Chun instantly stopped in their tracks and raised their hands to make a gesture. Instantly, Xiao Chun, Jingyu, Interrogation Officer 3 and Interrogation Officer 15 split up and disappeared from the rooftop in a few leaps. Then, Qinggu was dumbfounded. On the wide road, only Qinggu was left. Alone. "You guys." Qingji's face turned pale, not sure if it was from anger or fear. The surroundings were silent. Only the sound of the wind blowing the leaves could be heard. Qinggu braced himself and walked forward. Looking at the situation in front of him, he swallowed silently. Why did he feel like someone was following behind him? Gulp. Qingji's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed silently. "Ninth brother, ninth sister-in-law, you guys are really too much." "I'm not ready yet," Jingyu indeed told Qinggu first, but how could Qinggu not know what Jingyu and Xiao Chun meant by this? They obviously wanted to use Qinggu as bait. Jingyu and Xiao Chun hid on the roof and watched Qinggu trembling as he walked on the street. Jingyu couldn't help but ask, "Aren't we too cruel? What if Qinggu pees himself?" Xiao Chun. There was no movement on the street. Jingyu wondered if she was too anxious. So the bait was too obvious? That's why I can't attract them. Just as Jingyu was considering whether or not to go down, she suddenly heard a strange sound. She narrowed her eyes and stared down with a burning gaze. She saw a figure walking out of the darkness step by step. He was alone. But it seemed like it wasn't just one person. Jingyu watched as the man approached Qinggu step by step. Qinggu seemed to have sensed it as well. He stood stiffly on the spot, muttering something under his breath. He clenched his fists tightly and closed his eyes. His face was dripping with cold sweat. As the man approached, Jingyu slowly took out the bow on her back and slowly pulled the bowstring. The cold tip of the arrow was pointed at the man. The man stopped a few meters away from Qinggu, as if he had suddenly stopped. Jingyu wasn't in a hurry. She just waited quietly. Finally, the man leaped up and bared his sharp teeth without hesitation. He was about to pounce on Qinggu. Jingyu's arrow flew out at the same time. Jingyu thought that the arrow would definitely hit its target. However, something terrifying happened. The man seemed to have sensed it. He reached out and grabbed the arrow. His body was suddenly hit, and he fell to the ground. The arrow pierced his shoulder. The monster suddenly raised his head and looked in Jingyu's direction. Jingyu stood up abruptly. She saw the monster's sharp teeth and narrowed eyes. It was like a wild beast. It looked at Jingyu and turned to flee. Chapter 1991. Xiao Qian, Third Xing, and the rest leaped out and pounced on the monster without a second thought. "Be careful," Jingyu shouted and leaped down as well. She frowned slightly and looked at the person who was knocked down by Xiao Qian. Interrogation Officer 3 and Interrogation Officer 15 went forward and caught the person who was knocked down. The sword was placed on his neck, but he was not afraid at all. He opened his mouth and bit down. He actually bit down on the sword and broke it in an instant. Hiss! Jingyu looked at this scene and then looked at the person whom 3rd Xing and 15th Xing had to use all their strength to hold down. Her face was filled with shock. What a mouthful of good teeth. Jingyu looked at the person who was pressed to the ground and could not move. The corner of her mouth twitched violently. This was indeed a person, but his originally flat teeth had been sharpened into a sharp shape. It looked exceptionally frightening. He was just like a wild beast. Is this really a person? Qinggu was scared out of his wits. When he saw that the person was subdued, he silently lifted his hand to wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. "Ninth brother, ninth sister, you guys are too disloyal." Qinggu seemed to have finally thought of something. He looked at Jingyu and Xiaoqian accusingly and said, "How could you leave me here without telling me?" Xiaoqian pursed his lips and did not say anything. "Wouldn't we be exposed if we told you?" Jingyu said seriously. "Besides, don't you trust me?" Jingyu smiled at Qinggu and squatted on the ground. She looked at the person who was knocked out by 3rd Xing and frowned curiously. She squinted at the person and asked, "Why does it look so scary? What is this thing?" "Madam, this monster is extremely strong." 3rd Xing wiped his sweat silently. If he hadn't reacted fast enough, the monster would have escaped. Not only is he strong, but his reflexes are also impressive. He actually managed to dodge my arrow? Jingyu rubbed her chin with an amused expression as she narrowed her eyes. What kind of monster is this? Qinggu also came over and looked at the person in front of him. His brows slowly wrinkled as if he wanted to get closer to study this person. However, he smelled an extremely unpleasant smell on this person's body. So smelly. How long has it been since he last bathed? Qinggu frowned. Everyone, while Jingyu and Xiaoqian were wondering what was going on, Xiaoqian suddenly turned his head and squinted his dark eyes. Someone's coming. Jingyu also stood up when she heard that. Her eyes were cold. Why would there be people in the middle of the night? There were indeed a few people running over on the street. Looking at their posture, they probably knew martial arts. They probably didn't expect to meet Jingyu and Xiaoqian here. They were slightly stunned and then lowered their heads to look at the monster on the ground that was subdued by Jingyu and Xiaoqian. "Did you guys catch this monster?" The middle-aged man who was the leader suddenly widened his eyes when he saw this scene. He looked at Jingyu and Xiaoqian's group in horror and asked, "Who are you guys?" Jingyu frowned slightly as she looked at this group of people. "Heroes, please don't be alarmed. It's my fault." When this person heard Jingyu's cautious question, he quickly cupped his hands and said, "We are people from this city. Our purpose is to catch this monster." Chapter 1992. You're here to catch this monster? Jingyu and the rest looked at each other when they heard this. That's right. The leader stepped forward and bowed slightly to Jingyu. I'm Yin Qinyang, a hunter in this city. For the past 6 months, strange things have been happening in the city. No one is in charge, so we formed a team to deal with this monster. It's just that in the past 6 months, we've encountered this monster many times, but we haven't been able to catch it. We've even lost a few brothers. I didn't expect that it would be caught by a few heroes today, Yin Qinyang said very seriously. I don't think you guys are locals, right? Are you just passing by? Yin Qinyang looked curiously at Jingyu, Xiaoqian, and the rest. That's right. We're indeed outsiders. We heard about this monster, so we came to check it out. Unfortunately, we happened to meet it and caught it. Jingyu narrowed her eyes and kicked the person who fainted on the ground. She asked curiously, do you guys know what kind of monster this is? This? Yin Qinyang heard Jingyu's words and frowned. In the end, he sighed deeply and said, this incident started a year ago. If you guys don't mind, why don't you come to my house for a while? This monster still needs to be looked after properly. If this monster wakes up, I'm afraid there'll be trouble. The man said seriously. All right. Jingyu looked at the monster on the ground and then turned to look at Xiaochun, Third Xing, and the rest. She nodded slowly in agreement. We're staying at Chengyuan Inn. You guys can take this monster away. Jingyu said a few words casually and then left with Xiaochun. As for whether these people would come looking for them, Jingyu was very sure that they would come looking for them. Brother Yin, we don't know where these people came from. Are we really going to tell them about this monster? Someone beside Yin Qinyang asked worriedly. Let's wait and see. Yin Qinyang frowned deeply. He looked in the direction where Jingyu and the others left and said seriously, these people are not simple. It is very likely that they are here for the Miaojiang. This could be an opportunity for us. Yin Qinyang frowned slightly, as if he had thought of something. He frowned silently but didn't say anything in the end. He waved his hand and asked everyone to tie up the monster. The next morning, the owner of the inn saw Jingyu and Xiaochun getting up and eating as usual. He was so surprised that his eyes widened. Did you guys really go out last night? The shopkeeper looked at Jingyu and Xiaochun in surprise. He went out. What's wrong? Jingyu still looked a little sleepy. She yawned and poured herself some water. When she answered the shopkeeper's question, she looked at the shopkeeper's face as if he had seen a ghost. She immediately curled her lips in amusement. You guys didn't see anything? The shopkeeper was even more confused. He looked at Jingyu carefully and asked, see what? Jingyu raised her eyebrows and looked at this person. She asked happily, did you see the monster? We saw it. The shopkeeper heard Jingyu's words and widened his eyes. He asked, did this monster didn't do anything to you guys? What do you want it to do to us? Jingyu rolled her eyes helplessly. Chapter 1993. At this moment, Jingyu didn't intend to reveal the matter of the monster. After all, she still didn't have a clear understanding of the situation. It wouldn't be good if this caused a panic. Jingyu looked at the innkeeper calmly. Chingu chuckled and said that he was hungry and asked the innkeeper to find something to eat. The innkeeper left with a heart full of worries. Jingyu and Xiao Chen had just eaten their fill when they saw 3 people walk into the deserted inn. Jingyu and Xiao Chen naturally recognized the leader of the 3 people. Wasn't this the person who appeared last night? The innkeeper was also surprised when he saw the appearance of these people. However, it was obvious that they were acquaintances. After exchanging a few words, the innkeeper pointed in the direction of Jingyu and Xiao Chen. That person nodded slightly and walked towards Jingyu. Yen Mao pays his respects to the heroes. Yin Qinyang was very courteous. The 2 people behind Yin Qinyang looked at each other and also cupped their hands towards Jingyu and Xiao Chen. No need to be so courteous. Please have a seat, Jingyu said as she raised her hand slightly. When these people sat down, she then lifted her hand and poured water for Yin Qinyang unhurriedly. She said casually, young Master Yin isn't an ordinary hunter, right? When I looked at young Master Yin just now, he looked like someone from the pugilistic world. Jingyu said calmly. The half of her face that was covered by the mask blocked the expression on Jingyu's face. Jingyu's black eyes looked at the person in front of her quietly. From last night until now, Yin Qinyang had been behaving very politely. No matter how Jingyu looked at it, she felt that this person was definitely not an ordinary hunter, so she opened her mouth to ask. Miss, you have good eyesight. My father used to be a man of the pugilistic world. When I was young, I followed my father out and about. Naturally, I've been influenced by the habits of the pugilistic world. Yin Qinying smiled amiably. He looked at Jingyu calmly and said, "You guys don't look like ordinary people in the Jianghu." When Yin Qinying said this, his eyes fell on Xiaochen. Although it was Jingyu who was talking, in Yin Qinying's opinion, Xiaochen was like the master. He just stood there silently, but he couldn't be ignored. Haha. Jingyu slightly arched her eyebrows, seemingly unwilling to say more. She calmly looked at Yin Qinying and said, "We are just passers." Jingyu pursed her lips slightly as she looked at Yin Qinying and casually asked, "I was supposed to leave for the Miaojiang, but I unexpectedly discovered this monster in the city. Does young Master Yin have anything to say? Forgive me for being presumptuous, but where are you going to the Miaojiang?" Yin Qinying slightly frowned as he looked at Jingyu and said, "The Miaojiang is so dangerous. The people of the Miaojiang are extremely xenophobic. Where are you going?" "To find someone." Jingyu didn't hide it. She slightly raised her eyebrows and said, "It's very important. I can't say much to young Master Yin. Please forgive me." "Oh." Yin Qinying slowly nodded and said, "Speaking of this monster, I need to start from the people of the Miaojiang a year ago." "And?" When Jingyu heard Yin Qinying's words, she suddenly raised her eyebrows slightly. Her eyes were stained with a touch of coldness. She looked at Yin Qinying and continued, "More than a year ago, the people of the Miaojiang somehow bribed the guards in the city and brought out a large number of Miaojiang people." Chapter 1994. Miaojiang's people were allowed to enter the mainland. It seems that because of these people, the 9th imperial concubine of Tokyo died. This matter caused the emperor to be furious. He ordered a thorough investigation, which led to here. The people in the army seemed to want to make up for it, but there was no progress. The leader of the army seemed to want to go to Miaojiang and completely block the road, but he didn't expect to be suddenly attacked. When the corpses were transported back, it was time for the incident to start. Yin Qinying frowned tightly and said, "The corpses that were transported back by the army disappeared overnight. After the disappearance of the corpses, the soldiers searched everywhere. How could someone steal the corpses?" But before the corpses were found, another person disappeared. Yin Qinying frowned deeply and said, "It was from then on. I just came back from outside and encountered this incident, so I sent people to secretly investigate. It wasn't until half a year ago that I finally found out the cause and effect of this matter. It turned out that there were Miaojiang's people hidden in this city. This person was actually using people to create goo, which is the monster you saw last night." "Human goo?" When Jingyu heard this, she suddenly frowned and asked curiously, "What does human goo mean?" "Simply put, it is to treat people as goo." Yin Qinying frowned slightly and said, "If you want to raise a goo, you have to put all kinds of poisonous creatures together, such as spiders, centipedes, scorpions, and so on. You put them together and let them kill each other and finally eat each other. After being bitten, nibbled, and fed, this venomous goo worm is born. This kind of goo worm is incomparably ferocious, and it is extremely difficult to raise one," Yin Qinying said slowly. "Listening to what you said, could it be that this human goo is to put several people together and then kill each other to become the strongest one?" Jingyu's heart trembled slightly as she looked at Yin Qinying and asked, "That's right." Yin Qinying looked deeply at Jingyu and replied, "However, the people who were put together were all close relatives. Dozens of them were locked up in the cave. In the end, human goo was cultivated and fed, using goo to raise human goo." When Jingyu heard this, she thought of that scene. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt nauseous. She furrowed her brows and sighed deeply. "The people of Miaojiang are so disgusting." Qing Ji's face turned pale as he listened. "I don't know how long this Miaojiang person has been hiding, nor do I know how many human goo he has raised. But after the search half a year ago, that Miaojiang person was killed, and these human goo became ownerless and scattered. I don't know where they're hiding now. They only appear at night to hunt humans." Yin Qinying sighed deeply and said, "The one you saw yesterday is the human goo. For the past 6 months, everyone has been living in fear. The soldiers and army ignored this. These human goo are extremely difficult to deal with. Many of our brothers have died. If this continues, I'm afraid that something big will happen. Yin Xinying looked up at Jingyu and Xiao Qian and said, Last night, this human goo was caught by all of you. I am here to thank you. But I suspect that there is more than one human goo. I wonder if you can help? Yin Xinying looked at Jingyu cautiously and asked. Chapter 1995. How do you know that we will definitely be able to help you? Jingyu suddenly smiled and asked Yin Xinying curiously. If you guys want to help, then this matter will be twice the result with half the effort. Yin Xinying silently pursed his lips and said, To be honest, I have infiltrated Miaojiang for many years and am very familiar with Miaojiang. If you guys are willing to help, I am willing to lead you guys into Miaojiang after the matter is done. Oh? Jingyu heard this and was instantly interested. She looked at Yin Xinying in surprise and asked, You have been to Miaojiang? Yes. Yin Xinying slightly nodded and replied, My mother is from Miaojiang. When I was young, I often went to Miaojiang. Jingyu was slightly surprised and then faintly curved her eyebrows and said, Just right. We do need someone to lead the way. Since you said so, then we will see. But I wonder, what do you want to do? Phew. Thank you guys. Yin Xinying heard Jingyu's reply and slowly let out a sigh of relief. We want to let the monster go and see where it will run to. It will definitely be the monster's nest. Yin Xinying looked at Jingyu and frowned deeply and said, But this monster moves very quickly. I think we will need your help to catch up. This is simple. Jingyu very casually nodded and called out, 15. Your Qinggong is not bad, right? Yes, your subordinate understands. 15 Xing immediately replied. Yin Xinying saw that Jingyu was so relaxed and immediately became happier. After confirming the time and saying some things to pay attention to, Yin Xinying left. After the innkeeper saw that this person left, he looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun with eyes full of doubt but did not ask anything. After Yin Xinying and the group left the inn, the two people following Yin Xinying anxiously asked, Brother Yin, can these people really help us? I don't know. Yin Xinying also deeply sighed. He really did not know if Jingyu and the rest could help, but since they had the guts to bring these people to Miaojiang, their martial arts should not be weak. There was also the monster from last night. The reason why Jingyu and the others were able to capture the monster so easily was because the monster had been injured and had not eaten for a long time. If the monster was at its peak, they might not have been able to capture it. Then Brother Yin, you still? When the people beside him heard Yin Xinying's reply, they were stunned and asked in confusion. This is our chance. Yin Xinying frowned and said, How would we know if we don't try? After Yin Xinying said this, he took a deep breath and turned to leave. The two people behind him looked at each other and were silent for a while before following him. Jingyu leaned comfortably on the chair with a calm expression. Qinggu looked at Jingyu and suddenly frowned. He asked in a conflicted tone, Ninth sister, are you really going to interfere? Haven't I already interfered? What else is there to be real or fake? Jingyu calmly curved her lips slightly. The calmness in her eyes made Qinggu speechless. Human venomous goo. Such a cold-blooded method has been exposed. It's not a bad thing for us to take this opportunity to understand it. Jingyu raised her eyebrows slightly and turned to look at Xiao Chun and asked, What do you think? Chapter 1996. Xiao Chun. He had already agreed. Wasn't it too late to ask him now? I know you must be thinking the same thing as me. Jingyu answered her own question happily. Xiao Chun replied expressionlessly. Qinggu, Third Xing and the rest turned their heads away silently. They already knew this would happen. Jingyu and the rest had a good rest in the morning and went out for a stroll. It had to be said that this place was really too sparsely populated. Jingyu was speechless. Especially when these people saw Jingyu and Xiao Qin's group, they looked especially frightened. This made Jingyu even more speechless. They really didn't have the mood to continue strolling around and went back to their houses early in the morning. When the sky turned dark, Yin Xinying sent someone to invite Jingyu and the rest over. Jingyu had brought all the equipment she had on her. Now that she didn't have the ability of the other pupil, she really had to be careful. Jingyu slung her longbow on her back and followed that person to a house in the city. She watched as the monster broke open the metal door and left. Yin Xinying looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun waved his hand slightly and 15th Xing instantly flew away like a ghost. Jingyu wasn't in a hurry and just waited there. When Yin Qinyang's group saw Jingyu and Xiao Qin's group appear, they instantly felt strange. Pairs of eyes stared at Jingyu and Xiao Qin's group. Some people were whispering to each other. She didn't need to listen to them to know what they were talking about. They were doubting Jingyu's ability. Jingyu was very calm as she had seen this kind of scene many times. It was Yin Qinyang who was a little embarrassed. He opened his mouth and shouted for everyone to shut up. Jingyu raised her eyebrows slightly, but did not say anything. He's still not back after so long. Could something have happened to him? Everyone waited for a long time, but no one came back. Suddenly, they were a little worried. After all, it was an outsider who was involved. If he died because of this, would it implicate them? Wait a little longer, Yin Qinyang said with a frown. Brother Yin, are these people outsiders? One of them looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun and asked, are they really okay? If you don't trust us, why did you ask us to come? Qinggu couldn't bear it any longer. He turned his head and looked at that person. His eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. He smiled with a hint of ridicule and said, in any case, we aren't from the city. At worst, we can just leave. Why would we care about your life and death? Besides, what do you have here that's worthy of our attention? Qinggu turned his head in disdain. His words instantly caused everyone to glare at him angrily. Jingyu looked at Qinggu in surprise. Since when did Qinggu have such a glib tongue? Just as everyone was in a commotion, 15th interrogation officer, who had left, returned. Master, madam. 15th interrogation officer bowed slightly to Xiao Qian and Jingyu and said, I saw the monster hide in the cave and didn't go in. However, looking at the footprints outside, there must be a lot of them in the cave. Did you mark it? Jingyu nodded slowly and turned her head to ask. Yes. 15th interrogation officer bowed and replied. Young Master Yin, this monster is so active at night. It's definitely not appropriate for us to go at night. Why don't we get everyone to prepare their weapons tomorrow morning and go check it out? Chapter 1997. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yin Qinyang nodded slowly. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others then left. After Jingyu, Xiao Qian, and the others left, there was an uproar in the crowd. Everyone was very dissatisfied with the attitude of Jingyu and the others. These people had always been regarded as saviors by the people in the city. Now that they suddenly encountered people like Jingyu and Xiao Chun, of course, they were unhappy. They felt as if their status had been snatched away. Who are these people? That's right. Who are these people? What if these people spread the news about the monster and caused panic in the city? Then wouldn't our efforts all this time be in vain? Everyone spoke one after another. The words that came out of their mouths made Yin Qinyang's face turn ashen. He suddenly shouted coldly, Enough? Do you think that it's a good thing for us to hide it from the people in the city? Yin Qinyang's pair of cold eyes looked at these people. He furrowed his brows and said, You've seen that person's ability just now? Since he could follow the monster without being discovered, and we couldn't find it even after months of searching, how many of our brothers died there even though we knew it was in that area? Yin Qinyang looked deeply at these people and asked, Or are you saying that you don't want the monster to disappear at all? So many people in the city are waiting for us to catch the monster. If you are still addicted to being admired by everyone, I will disband the team right now. I'll show you how the monster eats your family. Yin Qinyang fiercely flung his sleeves. When these words came out, everyone's expressions suddenly became very interesting. Every one of them was embarrassed by Yin Qinyang's words. They were indeed used to their lives. At the beginning, they had joined the team with a heart full of passion. However, during this period of time, because they fought against the monster, they were respected by the people in the city. They especially enjoyed the process, so much so that they had forgotten what their original intentions were. Today, Yin Qinyang's words were like a wake-up call to everyone, waking them up. These words were like a resounding slap to everyone's face, making them feel extremely ashamed. The passers-by are willing to draw their swords to help, regardless of life and death. But you are thinking of these things. The few people who had followed Yin Qinyang in the beginning sighed in disappointment when they saw this group of dozens of people. In the end, They followed Yin Qinyang and left. Jingyu didn't know what had happened. After they returned to the inn, they went back to their rooms to rest. Jingyu took off her clothes and sat calmly by the window. Her brows were slightly furrowed. When Xiaoqun entered the room, he saw Jingyu like this. "What are you thinking about?" Xiaoqun sat down beside Jingyu and asked with raised eyebrows. "Have Little Potato and Little Watermelon returned to the Imperial City?" Jingyu turned her head and looked at Xiaoqun. They should have arrived by now." Xiaoqun knew that Jingyu missed her children. He reached out and gently hugged Jingyu in his arms. Jingyu felt Xiaoqun's comfort and a faint smile appeared in her eyes. She leaned against Xiaoqun. "I received a message. Fengling is coming towards us," Xiaoqun said after a moment of silence. Jingyu raised her eyebrows slightly. Chapter 1998. Fengling came to look for us? Jingyu said doubtfully. "Did you pass the news to her?" "No," Xiaoqun said calmly. "If I'm not wrong, it should be the Constellation Palace who sent the news. However, I'm a little surprised that Fengling is coming." "Huh." Jingyu suddenly laughed softly. She turned to Jingyu and said, "Didn't you say it yourself? If Fengling wanted to come, she would naturally come. Now that she's here, you're surprised?" Xiaoqun suddenly fell silent. He frowned slightly and said, "That's two different things." "Why are they two different things?" Jingyu blinked and asked Xiaoqun. Xiaoqun looked at Jingyu and frowned. Without thinking, he leaned over and kissed Jingyu's lips. Jingyu's eyes widened. What kind of person was this? They were talking nicely, and he actually kissed her. Xiaoqun was originally kissing her for fun. The reason was that he was too lazy to talk. However, after kissing for a while, he became addicted. He hugged Jingyu and immediately became naughty. Jingyu struggled slightly. "We're talking about serious matters," Jingyu said as she pushed Xiaoqun. I'm also doing serious matters." Xiaoqun flipped over and pressed Jingyu down. His pair of dark eyes looked at Jingyu brightly. In the end, they didn't say anything and satisfied Xiaoqun, this hungry wolf, until he was full. In the morning, Jingyu lay peacefully on the bed. Xiaoqun hugged Jingyu and kissed her left and right. Jingyu couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Fengling still needs some time to arrive. Let's not wait any longer. Xiaoqun squinted his eyes as he played with Fengling's hair. "Why?" Jingyu turned to look at Xiaoqun in confusion and said, "Doesn't Fengling know Miaojiang very well? Why don't we wait for Fengling?" "It's been too long." Xiaoqun said calmly, "Let's meet again in Miaojiang." "All right." Jingyu raised her eyebrows slightly and did not ask further. She lay on the bed for a while. In order to prevent this hungry wolf from pouncing on her again, Jingyu decisively got up. After tidying herself up, she went downstairs to eat. They leisurely arrived at the place where they had agreed to meet last night. They noticed that everyone was already there and seemed to have been waiting for a while. When they saw that Jingyu and Xiaoqun had taken so long to arrive, they seemed to have some complaints, but they didn't say anything. Jingyu was surprised. Did these people really have a change of heart? "Let's go." Seeing that everyone was ready, Yin Qinying waved his hand and set off. 15th Xing, and Jingyu walked in front. Yin Qinying followed closely behind. He watched as Jingyu followed the mark and walked into the depths of the forest. "Be careful." Jingyu squinted at the poisonous snake that was killed by 3rd Xing. She frowned and said, "This place seems to have attracted a lot of poisonous creatures." "Yes, there are footprints." Xiaoqun slowly unsheathed his sword, and Jingyu unsheathed the longbow on her back. She looked very serious, and the people behind her also became nervous. Everyone frowned and looked around vigilantly. "Master, it's the cave in front." 15th Xing looked at the cave 100 meters away and stopped in his tracks. "Master, look, these are all poisonous creatures." Xiaoqun and Jingyu heard 15th Xing's voice and frowned. Indeed, they saw poisonous creatures everywhere at the entrance of the east cave. Jingyu felt her scalp go numb. Qinggu took out the medicinal powder from the cloth bag on his body. Chapter 1999. "This is the repellent snake's powder," Qinggu said as he got 3rd Xing and 15th Xing to scatter it. Sure enough, they saw that the poisonous creatures on the road had all retreated, as if they were extremely disgusted by the powder. Jingyu also raised her hand and killed some of them before walking to the entrance of the cave. This monster has to hide inside and not come out. Jingyu rolled her eyes and said happily, let's use the old method to force it out by lighting a fire. Parasites are all afraid of fire. This method will work. Yin Qinying nodded in agreement and immediately called for someone to light the torches. The scorching flames burned towards the entrance of the cave. These monsters weren't humans. There definitely wasn't any other way out. Jingyu wasn't in a hurry. After burning for 4 hours, there was indeed some movement from the cave. Instantly, everyone present became alert and stared at the entrance of the cave. Jingyu slowly tightened the longbow in her hand. Her dark eyes stared at the entrance of the cave that was emitting thick smoke. The surroundings were silent. Everyone held their breaths and didn't dare to move. Finally, they heard a roar. A figure suddenly jumped out of the cave. The moment the figure appeared, the arrow in Jingyu's hand suddenly shot out. The arrow hit the monster's shoulder. Jingyu frowned. This monster really had extraordinary agility. It was actually able to dodge her arrow. Jingyu wanted to shoot its throat, but the monster dodged it. The monster didn't care. After one rushed out, a few more rushed out in succession. Each of them was extremely ferocious as they pounced towards Jingyu and the others. Xiao Chun and Third Xing went up to meet them. Jingyu didn't stay idle either. The arrows in her hand were accurate. However, these things seemed to be unaware of pain and continued to attack crazily. After 5 or 6 of them jumped out of the cave, they stopped. Yin Qinying and the others didn't look like they were to be trifled with either. Each team surrounded one monster while Jingyu wandered around the entire situation. When she saw which side needed help, she would shoot arrows anytime. Chop off their heads. When Jingyu saw that these things were so durable, her eyes were filled with coldness as she shouted. When the crowd heard Jingyu's words, they immediately attacked the monster's head without any hesitation. Xiao Chun quickly killed one. Xing San and Xing Shiwu dealt with another, and the rest were in the group. It seemed to be very strenuous. Jingyu gripped the bow tightly, and an ice-cold sharp blade appeared. Jingyu rushed into the crowd, and the way she swung the bow was as if she had taken down a monster by herself. Those people widened their eyes in shock as they watched Jingyu suppress the monsters. The sharp bow and arrow in his hand directly pierced the monster's head, as if he was cutting a watermelon. Hiss! Everyone looked at this scene and suddenly trembled violently. Don't be distracted. Be careful of the venomous worms in the flesh of these things. Jingyu turned her head and said. Another arrow was shot out, and the monster that almost hit one of them was hit by Jingyu's arrow. It retreated a few steps and let out a roar. Disgusting things. Jingyu's eyes were filled with disgust. Without thinking, she flew up and the bow string wrapped around the neck of a monster. The thin wild silk was caught by the monster's hand. Chapter 2000. When everyone saw this scene, they were stunned. Just as they were about to go up and help, however, he saw Jingyu's lips curl up in disdain. She said in an extremely cold voice, "Die." Then, under everyone's strange gazes, Jingyu pulled with all her might. Everyone saw with their own eyes that the thin, heavenly silk thread cut off that person's finger. Then, it slid down from the finger to the neck and cut off the entire head of the monster. Jingyu looked coldly at the monster falling down with a head in her hand. Under everyone's gaze, Jingyu threw the head aside in disdain. Smelly, Jingyu looked at her bow that was dirted and was instantly displeased. She turned her head and saw that the monsters had been dealt with. She nodded her head in satisfaction. When she turned her head to look at Yin Qinying and the others, she suddenly realized that the way they looked at her was a little different. Jingyu raised her eyebrows. What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Jingyu looked at everyone in confusion. She thought that the blood had splashed on her face, so she asked curiously. Nothing. Everyone shook their heads silently. Let's go in and see what's the situation in this cave. Jingyu raised her eyebrows calmly and walked in without any change in her expression. Xiao Chun, Third Xing, and the rest also went in. This cave was like a storage cave. But what was stored here were all corpses. There were human corpses and animal corpses. There was a strong smell of rotting corpses. Jingyu endured the nausea in her stomach and looked around. When she didn't find anything valuable, she quickly rushed out. Let's burn all of these. The best way was to burn all of these things. She also looked around to see if there were any fish that had escaped the net. After confirming that there were no fish, she slowly heaved a sigh of relief. This is crazy. Jingyu frowned fiercely. She knew very well how many people had died to create these 5 or 6 monsters. Moreover, Jingyu saw that these people's teeth had been sharpened by someone. Why did this person create such a monster? Was the person who created this monster really dead? Jingyu watched the fire burn with her own eyes. Someone went into the city to inform the people that the monster had been killed. The people in the city were all cheering. Jingyu, Xiaochun, and the others went into the inn to take a bath. Then, he asked Qinggu to check his pulse to make sure that he wasn't injured or poisoned. Only then did he feel relieved. The people in the city cried tears of joy when they saw the charred corpse of the monster reef with their own eyes. Finally, they would not have to live in fear every day. Jingyu sat by the window and looked at the scene outside. Her lips curled into a faint smile. Jingyu didn't let Yin Qinyang expose himself, so Yin Qinyang didn't say a word. After everything was settled, Yin Qinyang came to visit. Jingyu, Xiaochen, and the others were eating. Jingyu didn't order so many dishes at all, but she saw a table full of dishes being served continuously. Heroes. The shopkeeper solemnly stood in front of Jingyu and the others and said, "Thank you, heroes, for avenging my daughter." Jingyu hurriedly helped up the shopkeeper who was about to kneel down. Her eyes were filled with surprise. How did this person know that they were the ones who did it? Chapter 2001. How are you so sure that it's us? When Jingyu and the others saw this person's appearance, they were immediately shocked and asked curiously. That's right. We didn't say anything. When we left, we didn't alert the inn either. How did you know? Qingji's face was also filled with confusion. He looked at the shopkeeper strangely and asked, "You must be joking," the old man said with a slight smile. The old man calmly arched his eyebrows and said, "When you all moved into the store, I was already aware of it. In addition, Yin Qinyang and the others came over yesterday to talk with you. Although I don't know what you talked about, it's not hard to guess what you talked about at such a time," the shopkeeper said seriously. "Shopkeeper, you have a good eye." Jingyu smiled calmly. "I know that you don't want to make it public. Don't worry, I won't say anything. This table of dishes is just a token of my appreciation. Please accept it." The shopkeeper was interesting. With just a few words, he made Jingyu look at him in a different light. Seeing that the shopkeeper had really left, Jingyu looked at the dishes with satisfaction and said, "It's rare to be able to eat such a big meal. Moreover, it's free. Don't just stand there. Hurry up and eat." As Jingyu spoke, she ignored the others and ate happily. When they were full, Jingyu, Xiaochun, and the others leaned back in their chairs and discussed the matter of the human venomous insects. "What do you think about this matter?" Jingyu turned to look at Xiaochun, Qinggu, and the others and asked, "I don't know why, but I keep feeling that these human venomous insects were deliberately abandoned here," Qinggu said with a frown. "Is the person who created the human venomous insects really dead? Why do I feel so uneasy?" Qinggu sighed deeply and looked at Jingyu and Xiaochun. He asked, "What do you think?" "My thoughts are the same." Jingyu pursed her lips and said calmly, "It seems like we found the human venomous insect step by step. However, in my opinion, it seems like someone has already arranged everything and is just waiting for us to intervene. Since we are going to be enemies with the people of Miaojiang, we will encounter them sooner or later." Xiaochun was exceptionally calm. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked into the distance. "Maybe Miaojiang knows that we are here." Xiaochun's words made everyone fall into a short silence. "Forget it." Jingyu stood up and said, "Let's take one step at a time. Go back and rest. We will set off tomorrow." "Yes." Interrogation Squad 3 and Interrogation Squad 15 bowed in response. Qinggu also nodded calmly. When Xiaochun and Jingyu were about to leave, they saw Yin Qinyang striding in. Jingyu looked at Yin Qinyang in shock. She probably didn't expect that Jingyu and Xiaochun would appear here. "Heroes, sorry for the wait." Yin Qinyang bowed slightly to Jingyu and said solemnly, I am here to fulfill my promise. Jingyu raised her eyebrows and looked over. Back then, I had an agreement with all of you. If the matter of the monsters in the city was resolved, I would bring all of you to Miaojiang. Now, I have come to fulfill my promise. Yin Xinyang looked at Jingyu silently and said firmly, Okay. Jingyu was stunned. Chapter 2002. Since you're ready, let's set off together tomorrow. Jingyu said calmly and turned to leave. Yin Xinyang was slightly stunned. Why did he have a feeling that Jingyu didn't care about the agreement between them at all? It made him attach so much importance to it. So she didn't take it seriously at all? To be honest, Jingyu really didn't take it seriously. However, when Yin Xinyang took the initiative to come to her, Jingyu felt that she had done the right thing by helping him. The city regained its liveliness. At night, no one slept with anxiety. After Jingyu and Xiao Chun packed up, they stepped on the road to Miaojiang. After leaving the city and walking for a while, they could see the boundary stone. After leaving this place, they entered a barren land. Here, there were no laws and no one was in charge. Jingyu looked around calmly. Her eyes were cold. She was dressed in black clothes and wore a silver mask, which made her look even more murderous. The sun was still blazing. Jingyu looked at the barren land and frowned. Let's take a break, Yin Xinyang said to everyone. Only then did everyone find a shady place to rest. Looking at the situation outside, everyone gasped for breath. If we continue walking forward, we will pass by a swamp. Yin Xinyang took the opportunity to say, I haven't set foot here for a long time. I really don't know much about the swamp. Aren't there two paths in front? Jingyu heard Yin Xinyang's words. She raised her eyebrows and turned to ask. Compared to the land, I think it's better for us to walk through the swamp. Yin Xinyang's expression suddenly became a little strange. He pursed his lips and said, This is an ungoverned area. Most of the people gathered there are bandits and robbers. They are incomparably barbaric and unreasonable. Killing people has become a habit. For a period of time, they were active in the periphery. It seems like they wanted to occupy the town, but they were suppressed. So, they have been in the depths. We better pray that we don't meet them. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. Yin Xinyang frowned and said, This is probably the reason why it's not easy to enter the Miaojiang. Bandits. Jingyu frowned calmly. Since they were going to Miaojiang, Jingyu certainly didn't want to waste time on these bandits. Now that everyone had rested enough, she waved for everyone to set off. The swamp was really frightening. Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others arrived at the swamp. When they saw the huge swamp, Jingyu's face turned green. This is the small swamp you were talking about? The corners of Jingyu's mouth twitched violently as she looked at the endless swamp that was filled with white fog. She turned to look at Yin Xinyang and cursed in her heart. Young Master Yin, this small swamp of yours is really small. Qinggu opened his mouth and looked at the swamp. Finally, he turned to look at Yin Xinyang and said, I haven't been here for a long time. I didn't expect that the small swamp of the past would become like this. Yin Xinyang's mouth twitched silently. His face was also full of surprise. At the beginning, this swamp was only a small piece. Now, it had become. Chapter 2003. Ninth Sister-in-Law, what should we do now? Qinggu asked as he turned to look at Jingyu with a sad face. You're asking me? Who should I ask? Jingyu looked at Qinggu from the corner of her eyes. No matter how good one's Qinggong was, they wouldn't be able to pass through here. Moreover, Jingyu didn't have Qinggong. If they went down, wouldn't they sink in minutes? Looking around, it was a barren land without even a tree. Even someone with good Qinggong would need a foothold, right? Would they have to keep flying in the sky? How could their internal energy withstand such consumption? Let's go. Xiao Chun was calm. He gave up on their horses and looked at the swamp in the white fog. I'll explore the way. Although it's a swamp, there are still footholds. We'll pass through it faster. That's fine. Jingyu turned to look at Xiao Chun. If they were outside and entered the center of the swamp, they wouldn't be able to advance or retreat. They would be done for. Don't worry. Xiao Chun nodded calmly and took the lead to step into the swamp. After everyone heard Xiao Chun's words, they all followed. Xiao Chun walked very carefully, but every step was very stable. Everyone followed behind Xiao Chun. Seeing this, Jingyu felt a lot more at ease. In this swamp, some places looked like they were going to sink, but in fact, they couldn't. The group didn't stop for a rest and kept walking forward. At first, it was fine. However, after walking for a while, their physical strength couldn't take it anymore. Qingge was the first to collapse. He couldn't pull his feet out. Hold on. Jingyu gritted her teeth and looked at the road in front. Suddenly, she seemed to see something. Upon closer inspection, it looked like a rock. She immediately waved her hand and called everyone over. There seemed to be a few rocks over there. It's true. There are stones here. Everyone looked in the direction that Jingyu was pointing at, and their eyes were filled with surprise. It was as if they had suddenly found motivation. They exclaimed in surprise, "This place has rocks. We will definitely be able to stand firm. Let's hurry over and take a rest." Third Xing and the rest exclaimed happily. Jingyu nodded slightly and walked towards the rock. Who would have thought that there would be a rock in this swamp? As Jingyu and the others got closer, Jingyu glanced into the distance. As expected, she saw the rock in the distance. Just as Jingyu was about to retract her gaze, she suddenly saw that the rock sank a little. Without anyone stepping on it, the stone actually sank down. Upon seeing this, Jingyu's heart skipped a beat and her body trembled violently. "Wait, don't go over there." Jingyu suddenly raised her voice and shouted. The panic in her voice made everyone stop what they were doing. They looked at Jingyu in confusion. They didn't know why Jingyu suddenly shouted. "What's wrong?" Qinggu, Third Xing, and the rest looked at Jingyu. "Don't go over there. Something's wrong." Jingyu's dark eyes scanned the surroundings. Her serious expression made Jingyu's heart tighten. Everyone's eyes were also filled with seriousness. Seeing that Jingyu had taken out her bow, everyone also pulled out their weapons. Chapter 2004. "We are surrounded," Jingyu said slowly as she looked at the situation in front of her. Hiss. Everyone wanted to ask where they were surrounded, but when they saw the situation in front of them, they suddenly trembled violently. What they saw was rocks emerging from the quagmire one after another. Swamp crocodile. Jingyu gripped the bow in her hand tightly, and the cold, sharp blade shot out. Yin Xinyang had seen it once, but this time, he was still extremely surprised by Jingyu's weapon. While they were talking, the crocodiles in the quagmire finally revealed themselves. They had rock-like armor that disguised themselves as rocks to lure their prey. Jingyu should have recognized them long ago. Jingyu had seen many of these crocodiles before. There were even some that disguised themselves as dead trees by the river banks. She didn't expect that she would still be tricked by them today. "What do we do now?" Qinggu panicked as he saw the crocodile emerge. Its huge body made everyone gasp. Yin Xinyang's eyes were also full of shock, probably because he had never seen such a thing before. "Xing-san, Shiwu, bring Qinggu and young Master Yin away. Remember, find the back of the crocodile and step on it." Jingyu thought for a moment, then turned to look at everyone and said, "Xiao Chun, follow me. I will cover you." "Okay." Everyone nodded. When Xiao Chun heard that Jingyu wanted to cover them, he frowned unhappily. However, when he saw Jingyu waving the bow in her hand, Xiao Chun reluctantly nodded. "It looks like these crocodiles are almost starving." Jingyu frowned. She suddenly missed her other pupils. If she still had them, these crocodiles would be nothing. However, Jingyu didn't have any special pupils. These crocodiles were beasts. Jingyu furrowed her brows tightly. After a soft shout, 3rd Interrogation Officer took Qinggu and 15th Interrogation Officer took Yin Xinyang and stood up abruptly. The moment these people moved, the crocodile suddenly opened its mouth and Jingyu released the arrow in her hand without hesitation. It steadily pierced through the head of the crocodile, making the crocodile a stepping stone for Third Xing and the others. Xiao Qin didn't hesitate either. He jumped to the front and opened a path for the crocodiles. Jingyu followed behind. The crocodiles behind her smelled the scent of blood and rushed forward one by one. It really frightened Jingyu. The sharp blade on the bow swung fiercely. No matter how hard Jingyu tried, she didn't land on the ground. She stepped on the back of the crocodile and leaped forward quickly. From time to time, She would shoot an arrow to help Xiao-Chen open up a path. That was true. Moving forward in such a way was simply like riding a train. It was much faster than dilly-dallying. If anyone saw this scene, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop. This was because Jingyu and the others were dancing on the tip of a knife. If they weren't careful, they would step into the crocodile's mouth. However, Jingyu and Xiao-Chen cooperated with each other very well. Qinggu scattered the powder in his hand as if it was free. Jingyu and the others held their breaths and walked for a while. Then, Qinggu stopped, allowing Jingyu and the others to catch their breaths. Once again, they held their breaths and continued running. Jingyu's blood was boiling from killing at the back. Her eyes seemed to be dyed red as she swung the sharp blade in her hand fiercely. Chapter 2005. The smell of blood filled the air, and the crocodiles seemed to feel fear. One by one, they retreated, not daring to move forward. On the muddy ground, everyone was panting. Jingyu looked at the crocodiles expressionlessly, her dark eyes filled with murderous intent. The crocodiles looked at Jingyu's group as if they had seen something terrifying, and all of them retreated silently. This was the first time Yin Qinyang had seen such a scene. He had never thought that a human could cause animals to be so afraid. "You are," Xiao-Chen called out, and the murderous intent in Jingyu's eyes dissipated bit by bit. She turned to look at Jingyu, and found that everyone was looking at her strangely. Jingyu clenched her fists and kept the sharp blade on her bow. They could not stay in this place for long, so Jingyu and Xiao-Chen did not intend to stay for long. Just as they were about to turn and leave, they suddenly heard someone humming a little song. Jingyu and the rest were stunned and turned their heads in surprise. They saw a little old man walking with small steps on the other side. Ah! The little old man was holding a jug of wine and seemed to be in a good mood. But when he saw the crocodile corpses lying in the swamp, he screamed as if he had seen a ghost. "Who is it? Who is it? Who killed so many of my treasures?" The little old man roared like a madman. Ah! After a round of screaming, Jingyu and the rest saw the old man floating above the swamp like a feather, and not sinking at all. This scene made Jingyu and the rest widen their eyes. Before they could recover from their shock, they saw the little old man looking at the dead crocodiles with a pained expression. The other living crocodiles were actually very intimate with this little old man. Intimate? It can't be. Could it be that these crocodiles were all raised by this old man? The faces of Jingyu and the rest became very strange. Damn bastard! Who is it? The old man seemed to be completely enraged, and he suddenly turned to look at Jingyu and the rest. Finally, as if he had discovered Jingyu and the rest, he moved in front of Jingyu and Xiao-Chen in an instant. Jingyu and the rest felt their hearts tighten, and they looked at the old man warily. Where did this little girl come from? The old man looked at Jingyu and the rest with a very critical gaze. Finally, with a cold face, he pointed at the crocodile corpses in the swamp and asked, "You guys, did you see who killed my treasures?" As soon as the old man finished his question, Third Xing and the others felt their hearts tighten. Their hands involuntarily moved towards the direction of the sword and saber. However, at this moment, Jingyu took a step forward and blocked the old man's line of sight. "Senior, we've also just arrived. What happened here? Are there bandits here?" Jingyu's expression didn't change, and her heart didn't beat fast. She blinked and asked the old man in a very ignorant tone, "Bullshit. How dare those bandits come to my place and cause trouble? Are they tired of living?" When the old man heard Jingyu's words, he cursed. His beard trembled, and Jingyu frowned silently. "They're not bandits?" Jingyu's eyes were filled with doubt. Chapter 2006. Jingyu looked at the thing in front of her, then turned to the old man and said, "This place doesn't look like a place where a single person could kill their way out. Could there be someone else that's so powerful?" When the old man heard Jingyu's words, his expression changed. His eyes scanned Jingyu's group from head to toe, then he laughed coldly and said, "Do you think this old man is a 3-year-old child?" When everyone heard the old man's words, their hearts tightened. Did he find out? Of course this old man knows which bastard did it. When the old man said this, Jingyu and the others became even more nervous. Even Jingyu was prepared to make a move. As long as the old man made the slightest move, Jingyu would make a move without hesitation. However, everyone was prepared to fight at any time. But who would have thought? Other than that old bastard Fong Fong, who else could kill this old man's treasures? When the old man said this angrily, Jingyu and the others were stunned. They looked at the old man in a daze, then jumped up and down and scolded him. Damned bastard, this old man will definitely burn all of your treasures in one go. You're infuriating me to death. I'm so angry. The old man scolded for a long time, then turned to look at Jingyu and the others. Why are you little dolls so nervous? Do you think this old man will suspect that you killed him? When the old man said this, Jingyu's heart suddenly jumped up in her throat. Humph, other than this person who's not bad, your little bit of internal energy is not enough. Also, the two of you don't even have an ounce of internal energy. I think you can't even cross this swamp, let alone kill so many crocodiles? Do you really think this old man is stupid? When the old man finished speaking, he looked at Jingyu and the others proudly and said, looking at you guys, you must have been chased by your enemies and fled here, right? Everyone, don't worry, don't worry. This old man likes to help others the most. If someone comes looking for you, I definitely won't tell them about your whereabouts. Hurry up and leave. The little old man said kindly to Jingyu and the others, as if he was a good person. Everyone, did they say anything just now? Senior, my brother and sister will never forget your great kindness and benevolence. If I can escape this time, I will definitely come here to find Senior and repay your kindness. While everyone was still in a daze, Jingyu suddenly knelt on one knee. As soon as he said those words of gratitude, Xiao Qian and Qinggu were even more dumbfounded. What? Siblings? Who was the brother and sister? Sigh. When the old man saw Jingyu like this and heard her words, he immediately sighed deeply and said, Little girl, hurry up and get up. If it weren't for the fact that this old man can't leave this place, I would definitely protect you guys. Don't worry. If anyone dares to come to this old man's territory to look for people, I definitely won't leave them alive. The old man said seriously. Grandpa, you're really too kind. Those crazy bandits killed my family and even wanted to take me by force. If it wasn't for my brother who brought me all the way here, I'm afraid I would have already. When Jingyu said this, she suddenly choked up. Her face was filled with anger and helplessness, causing the old man's expression to change in horror. Chapter 2007. What? Whose whole family did she kill? Who did she kidnap? Wait a minute, their minds were in a mess. 3rd Interrogation Squad and 15th Interrogation Squad were dumbfounded. Yin Qinyang's face was full of disbelief. When he heard Jingyu's words, he seemed to suddenly realize that Jingyu's background was so rough. No wonder she didn't dare to expose it. Xiao Qin, old grandpa, if I were still alive, I would definitely repay this kindness. My little brother is still waiting for me up ahead. We have to go now. Jingyu stubbornly reached out to wipe away the non-existent tears. She stood up and bowed deeply to the old man. Good child, go on, go on. When the old man heard Jingyu's words, his face was full of anger. He lamented in his heart that this girl's background was so rough. Jingyu turned and walked a few steps, then turned back with a reluctant look. She bowed gratefully to the old man again, then walked a few more steps and turned back again. Finally, as if she had made up her mind about something, she suddenly turned back and said, Let's go. Sigh. Such a good child. The old man stood in the same spot and watched Jingyu turn back every 3 steps. He had only said a sentence that he wouldn't reveal their whereabouts, but she treated him like this. One look and he could tell that this girl was someone who valued relationships. What a pity. The old man sighed deeply, thinking that they had to live well. If it weren't for the promise, he wouldn't have to stay here for so long without being able to leave. Jingyu led Xiaochun and the rest and ran ahead. After running for a full 2 hours, she finally sat down on the ground, panting. She lifted her hand to wipe the cold sweat off her face. Jingyu's legs were practically weak. You scared me to death. Jingyu patted her chest, her face still in shock. Ninth sister, who are you siblings with? Your parents were killed by bandits. Bandits want to take you by force? This. Chingu stared at Jingyu strangely and asked, do you still remember your name? Are you a pig? Jingyu looked at Chingu and suddenly became angry. She reached out and slapped Qingji's head and said, if I didn't say that, do you think we would be able to escape? Everyone, how was it? My acting just now wasn't bad, right? Jingyu raised her eyebrows and smiled proudly. Madam, have you considered Master's feelings? 15th inmate was silent for a long time before he finally turned to look at Jingyu and asked. Jingyu was stunned when she heard this. She turned to look at Xiaoqin's expression. Xiaoqin looked at Jingyu calmly and said slowly, brother and sister? Xiaoqin, husband, let me explain. Jingyu saw Xiaoqin's expression and quickly went up to him. She looked at Xiaoqin pitifully and said sincerely, isn't this forced? I swear to God, there won't be a next time. Is that so? Xiaoqin smiled eerily. This smile made Jingyu's hair stand on end, but she still braced herself and tried to coax Xiaoqin, who said it was hard to coax a woman when she was angry. Look at how scary this man was when he was angry. Qinggu, Third Xing, and the others were used to it, but Yin Xinyang was completely dumbfounded this time. He couldn't figure out the relationship between these people at all. However, when he heard Jingyu say that this was all an act, his heart ached for her. Chapter 2008. Sure enough, she was too immersed in her role. Jingyu was too good at acting. After resting for a while, they continued to move forward without any delay. Once again, they set foot on the main road. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, Jingyu and the others had to find a place to rest. The night in this wasteland was no different from the night in other places. The bonfire was lit and Jingyu, Xiaoqian, and the others sat around it. Jingyu, Xiaoqian, and the others knew some things about Miaojiang from Yin Qinyang. Everyone sat around the bonfire and talked. I'm going to wash my face. Jingyu felt that her face was sticky with the mask. After saying this to everyone, she turned around and went to the river. She raised her hand and took off the mask. She took the mask and washed it carefully. Then, she washed her face. Jingyu washed seriously. She did not see that in the darkness somewhere, a figure was squatting in the grass like a leopard cat. When he saw Jingyu's beautiful face under the moonlight, his eyes suddenly widened. Under the moonlight, her face that was covered with water droplets was so beautiful and moving. Her pair of pitch-black eyes were like gems that shone brightly under the moonlight. Immediately, the person in the darkness hit her body bit by bit. She turned around and flashed into the darkness, disappearing without alerting anyone. Jingyu looked around in the darkness suspiciously. She felt like she was being watched by something, but when she looked around, she did not see anyone. Jingyu calmly raised her eyebrows. She wiped her face dry and put on the mask again. Jingyu, Xiaoqian, and the others were sleeping in a place in the wasteland. There was a simple stone house, but there were countless people gathered in it. Boss, we found the prey. The man was dressed in black. Even his face was black. The man excitedly ran in front of a burly man and said excitedly, Boss, we found 6 people. There's even a woman among them. She's so pretty. Just like a fairy. The man exclaimed excitedly as he rushed into the stronghold. Beautiful woman? The burly man's eyes widened in surprise. He raised his hand and pulled over a coquettish woman and asked, More beautiful than her? Beautiful. She's so much more beautiful. The man replied without hesitation. The woman, who had been held back by the burly man, was pleasantly surprised. However, when she heard the man's reply, her face turned ashen. Haha, gold, silver, jewels, and women. We can't let any of them go. The burly man was silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed out loud. He raised his hand and shouted, Tell the brothers to grab their weapons. Go to Yuan Valley and block the road. I want to see what kind of beauty she is. Big brother, don't worry. I definitely won't let you down. The man was also very excited. The mountain stronghold immediately boiled over. Jingyu did not know that she was being watched. In this wilderness, after an extremely restless sleep, She woke up early in the morning. After eating a simple meal, she continued on her journey. Yuan Valley is in front, Yin Xinying said. After leaving this valley, we will reach the boundary of Miaojia. After reaching the boundary, we will be able to see the town after walking for half a day. Chapter 2009. Jingyu and the rest nodded slowly. When they were on top of the hill, Jingyu frowned when she saw the valley. Look at the terrain. If there is an ambush, this valley will be very dangerous. Jingyu looked around and frowned worriedly. There are no bandits here. When Yin Xinying heard Jingyu's words, he quickly shook his head and said, bandits won't be able to rob caravans and supplies here. They are all on the other side of the hill, so you don't have to worry. I am very suspicious of your words now. Jingyu silently turned to look at Yin Xinying. When she thought about the swamp, Jingyu had the urge to beat him to death. Wasn't it supposed to be a small swamp? In the end, not only was there a large swamp, there was also a pool of crocodiles and a perverted old man. If it wasn't for Jingyu's quick-wittedness, they would have died 3 times already. Yin Xinying knew what Jingyu meant and immediately coughed embarrassedly. It was indeed because he hadn't been here for too long. Who would come to such a dangerous place when they had nothing better to do? Yin Xinying suddenly felt that he wasn't the one leading the way, but rather a burden. Tell me honestly, when was the last time you came here? Jingyu stared at Yin Xinying seriously and asked, about 15 years ago? Or 10 years ago? Yin Xinying carefully said, Ah, heavens. Jingyu almost knelt down. 15 years ago. How much had changed in 15 years? Jingyu suddenly regretted. Why did she bring this person here? Cough, cough, cough. Madam, don't worry. I have a good memory. Yin Xinying replied seriously. Jingyu pursed her lips and looked at the valley in the distance. She sighed deeply and said, even if there is an ambush, we still have to go. Is there a second path? No. Yin Xinying said awkwardly. I'll trust you one more time. Jingyu muttered to herself. Then, she turned around and walked down with Xiao Chun and the others. The deeper they went into the valley, the denser the trees became. Occasionally, 1 or 2 crows would fly by, scaring Qinggu into hiding between Xing San and Xing Shiwu. Master Qinggu, how did you survive for so many years looking like this? 15th interrogation officer looked at Qinggu and asked. 15. You're asking the wrong question. Jingyu turned around and looked at Qinggu with a serious expression. You should ask him, how did you grow up? It's simply too amazing. The corner of Qingji's mouth twitched. I'm a doctor. Do you know what a doctor is? Qinggu glared at Jingyu and 15th Xing angrily and said, I want to study medicine and save people. How would I have the time to practice? If it weren't for me, I'd like to see how you guys would get hurt. Jingyu watched Qinggu walk away arrogantly and pursed her lips. Her eyes were calm as she said happily, your medical skills are so good. Did you save any experts? Why don't I see any experts protecting you? Jingyu's teasing gaze made Qingji's face turn red. He shouted angrily, Ninth brother, hurry up and control your wife. She's such a bully. Chapter 2010. Xiao Chun replied expressionlessly and continued walking. Qinggu instantly burst into tears. What should he do if he missed his wife? Indeed, his wife was the best. While Jingyu and Qinggu were arguing, they approached the valley. Along the way, they chatted and laughed. It was really interesting. When they entered the valley, they could still hear Qinggu and 15th Xing arguing behind them. Yin Xinying would also occasionally interrupt. Jingyu and Xiao Chun were walking at the front. Just as Jingyu was about to speak to Xiao Chun, she suddenly stopped talking and looked straight into the valley. Why did you stop? Qinggu looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun, who suddenly stopped walking. His eyes were filled with confusion. Maybe. We can't leave. Jingyu's eyes turned cold as she slowly lowered the longbow in her hand. Ah. Qingji's face was still filled with confusion. When Qinggu turned his head to look, he saw a tall figure riding a fine horse. He had a ferocious look on his face. Then, He looked at the black mass of people behind him. These sword-wielding bandits directly surrounded Jing Yu's group. Young Master Yin, who told me that there were no bandits? Jing Yu wanted to strangle Yin Qinyang to death. Yin Qinyang wanted to commit suicide. This situation was different from what he had encountered in the past. In this group, Jing Yu was the only female. Naturally, he saw her at first glance. However, Jing Yu was wearing a mask. The leader on the tall horse stared at Jing Yu with a pair of burning eyes, as if he was sizing up an object. Jing Yu's expression was extremely ugly as she furrowed her brows. Kill all the men. Leave the women alive. Although the bandit leader was unable to see Jing Yu's entire face, he was able to tell from just half of Jing Yu's face that she was extraordinary. Furthermore, with her curvaceous figure, the bandit leader was very satisfied. Xiao Chun was instantly unhappy. He reached out and pulled Jing Yu behind him. Looking at the bandit leader, his dark eyes were extremely cold. A strong murderous intent slowly brewed in Xiao Chen's body. Ha ha ha. Boss Lei, what a coincidence. Just as the bandit on the opposite side was about to give the order, he suddenly heard a hearty laugh behind him. Jing Yu and the rest turned their heads to look. Great. Another group of bandits dressed in different colors had arrived. And they really didn't check the almanac before leaving the house. Jing Yu's resentful gaze made Yin Qinyang's scalp tingle. Not only were there bandits coming, there were two groups of bandits. Zhuorong, what are you doing here? The one who was called Boss Lei was the big guy sitting on the horse. Jing Yu felt that the horse was about to be crushed by the big guy. Jing Yu silently turned her head back. Boss Lei is here for something. Naturally, I am here for the same reason. Zhuorong replied with a smile. This Zhuorong didn't look like a bandit leader, but why did Jing Yu have the feeling that this person was more like a scholar? Zhuorong's gaze turned to Jing Yu and Xiao Chun. Finally, his gaze landed on Xiao Chun and then on Jing Yu. Looking at Jing Yu's half-masked face, Zhuorong's eyebrows curved delightedly. Little beauty, how about coming back with this king to be the bandit leader's wife? Zhuorong said delightedly. Chapter 2011. Jing Yu stared blankly at the scholarly man. Can you imagine what this scholarly man looks like when he says such a bandit's words? Hubby, someone wants to snatch me away to be the wife of a bandit. What should we do? Jing Yu remained silent for a moment. She blinked her eyes in confusion and turned to ask Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's face stiffened. Kill them. After he said this sentence expressionlessly, Zhuorong, who was sitting on the horse, widened his eyes in shock. He probably didn't expect Jing Yu to be married and that her husband was right beside her. So, you're already married. Zhuorong rubbed his chin in disappointment. Then, as if he thought of something, he looked at Jing Yu with interest and said, It's okay even if you're married. Little beauty, if you're willing to be with me, I guarantee that you'll live a good life. Jing Yu. What should she do? She really wanted to sew his mouth shut. Zhuorong. This is the person I've taken a fancy to. Before Jing Yu and Xiao Chun could react, Boss Lei shouted angrily. Jing Yu's gaze wandered between the two parties. So they were rivals. This was getting more interesting. Jing Yu raised her eyebrows and looked at Zhuorong with a serious expression. Everyone has a share. Boss Lei, isn't it too unreasonable for you to monopolize her? Why don't you give the man to you and the woman to me? Zhuorong thought for a moment and said seriously, Go to hell. What do I want these useless men for? Boss Lei was instantly enraged. His words almost made Jing Yu spit. Useless men. Jing Yu silently turned to look at Xiao Chun. She successfully saw the murderous look on Xiao Chun's handsome face. Don't talk nonsense. Jing Yu coughed silently. She raised her hand and took down the bough behind her. She turned to look at the two parties on her left and right. It seemed like they were all coming at her. It was a little difficult. Why not just kill one party? Husband, which side do you think it's better to send them on their way? Jing Yu frowned slightly and turned her head to ask seriously, Kill them all. Xiao Chen's entire body was emitting a cold aura. Jing Yu silently swallowed her saliva. This. Jing Yu looked at the two parties. There were at least a few hundred people. How could they win? Isn't that too cruel? Jing Yu seemed to be in a dilemma. Which side should she choose? Zhuarong and Boss Lei looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chun talking so impolitely. They were really looking down on them. Such arrogance was really unbearable. Boss Lei, why don't we work together? Zhuarong rolled her eyes and looked up at Boss Lei. What a joke. Do I need to work with you to deal with these people? Boss Lei said with disdain. Don't you just want a piece of the pie? Let me tell you, don't even think about it. Get lost. TSK, TSK, TSK. Zhuarong was not angry. Instead, she seemed to be very happy. She actually waved her hand and retreated to the side. She looked like she was not going to interfere. This made Jingyu and the rest frown suspiciously. This person was really interesting. Boss, are we really not going to interfere? The people besides Zhuarong frowned strangely. Chapter 2012. How could it be fake? Zhuarong rubbed his chin and looked at Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the rest calmly. He knew that these people were not simple people. In this place, it was hard to believe that someone who could come from that direction would not be able to come here if they did not have any ability. Furthermore, he had not seen a living person coming from this direction for more than 10 years. After Zhuarong stepped back, Jingyu frowned slightly. Looking at this person, was he really not going to interfere? It would be best if he did not shoot them in the back. Jingyu was not sure if bandits were unreasonable. Jingyu blinked and turned to look at Xiao Chun. She asked seriously, someone sent himself to be killed. Xiao Chun, do you think we should kill him or not? What do you think? Xiao Chun looked at Jingyu calmly. His eyes were cold and his eyebrows made Jingyu laugh. Go, snatch the woman and kill the man. Boss Lei's eyes were filled with greed as he looked at Jingyu. With a wave of his hand, his lackeys charged forward. When Jingyu saw this scene, her lips curled up in delight. All right, let's start a massacre then. The longbow in Jingyu's hand shot out arrows without hesitation. She stood still. The cold swords of Xiao Qian and the others were like scythes that reaped lives. They cut people down as if they were cutting vegetables. Zhuarong, who was watching from the side, saw Jingyu, Xiao Chun, and the others act like this. Her eyes widened slightly, and her originally indifferent figure straightened up a little. Jingyu had been attacking from afar. Boss Lei thought that it would be easy to take down these people. However, he did not expect that Jingyu and the rest had some skills. His face turned pale, and he waved his hand to signal the archers to shoot. Fortunately, he had brought enough people. Otherwise, he would not have been able to take them down. Chi. A sharp arrow suddenly shot towards Jingyu, stopping her from shooting. Jingyu tightened her grip on the longbow in her hand. The sharp blade ejected from the longbow made Zhuarong, who was watching the battle from afar, even more surprised. However, Zhuarong did not expect Jingyu's performance. She was so shocked that she almost dropped the things in her hands. After Jingyu gave up shooting arrows and changed to attacking, not only did she not feel uncomfortable at all, she was still like a fish in water. Her moves were really without any pause, and every move was fatal. This made Zhuarong suck in a breath of cold air. Among them, Jingyu and Qinggu did not have any internal energy. Zhuarong did not expect that Jingyu could do this even without any internal energy. It was simply unimaginable. Damn it, bring me my broadsword. Boss Lei was also provoked. He decided to take the field himself. He waved the broadsword in his hand fiercely. When he wanted to attack Jingyu, he was blocked by Xiao Chun coldly. This king wants your life. Xiao Qin's dark eyes flashed with a strong murderous intent. Even Boss Lei did not hear what Xiao Chun said clearly. Xiao Qin's longsword was already attacking Boss Lei. Previously, Xiao Chun did not seem to have any strong attacking power. However, looking at Xiao Qin's unreserved attacks now, it was as if he had been waiting for Boss Lei to take action. Chapter 2013. Jingyu's lips curled up in delight. Her eyes were calm. When she turned around to face the enemy, she saw someone attacking Qinggu. Qinggu was shocked. As he retreated, Jingyu threw the bow in her hand without hesitation. Stabbing the sharp blade into that person's chest, Qinggu turned to look at Jingyu. Jingyu smiled casually. Zhuarong saw that Jingyu's weapon was gone. Just as she was wondering what Jingyu would do next, she didn't expect Jingyu to be even more vicious after losing her weapon. Her body suddenly spun. Zhuorong didn't even see what weapon Jingyu was using. She saw the heads of those people fall to the ground. Jingyu seemed to be shocked too. Looking at the three people whose heads fell to the ground, she silently looked down at her hand. The wild silk in her hand was able to kill people without staining it with blood. It's really useful. Jingyu sighed silently. She turned to look at Xiaochen. Boss Lei was being completely abused by Xiaochen. Finally, with a kick from Xiaochen, Boss Lei flew out and landed heavily on the ground. The surroundings fell into a strange silence. Jingyu casually grabbed the person she was controlling. She suddenly moved her hand and expressionlessly retracted the silk. That person's head also rolled to the side. Only then did Zhuorong see the silk in Jingyu's hand. She instantly broke out in a cold sweat. What kind of silk was this? It actually had such skills. Still want to fight? Jingyu had just warmed up. Seeing that this thing was so useful, Jingyu wanted to kill a few more people. Xing-san. Xiaochen coldly kept the long sword in his hand. He turned around and said, "Do you know what to do?" Xing-san heard Xiaochen's call and looked at Boss Lei, who was sent flying. He respectfully bowed his head and then walked towards Boss Lei. Xing 15 sighed silently at the side. Why did they always have to do such torturous things? Who asked Master to be so lazy to do it? You. What are you trying to do? Boss Lei clutched his chest. That kick had caused him to be unable to catch his breath. When he raised his head and saw Third Xing, his eyes were instantly filled with fear. Third Xing looked at Boss Lei and the others from head to toe. Without saying a word, he raised his hand and chopped off all the limbs of this person. An incomparably shrill cry of agony rang out, startling the birds in the area and causing them to fly away. And how cruel, Xiaochen said quietly. Xiaochen narrowed his eyes. He reached out and grabbed Jingyu's chin and said, "If I'm cruel, then what about you?" After Xiaochen said this, he looked at the headless corpses on the ground. Jingyu chuckled. She reached out and hugged Xiaochen's arm. She turned around and looked at the stunned people around her. She said kindly, "You didn't answer me just now. Do you still want to fight? Didn't you want to catch me?" Jingyu blinked her eyes happily as if she was saying, "Come and catch me." When the people heard Jingyu's words and looked at the corpses on the ground, they hurriedly threw away the weapons in their hands. They knelt on the ground and cried, "Heroes, please spare us. We won't dare to do it again." Chapter 2014. The boss was already dead. Who would continue? Now, they were begging for mercy. Jingyu looked at these people and nodded in satisfaction. Then, she turned and walked to the other side. Zhuorong and the rest were completely stunned when they saw this scene. It had only been a few minutes and the place was already in a mess. The person that Boss Lei wanted to capture was still standing at the same spot, unharmed. However, the rest of the people were all lying on the ground. Third Xing was also here. He wiped the long sword in his hand and walked over slowly. No one dared to look at Boss Lei's corpse. There was not a single piece of unharmed flesh on his body. He couldn't be more dead. This was the price for offending Madame. Zhuorong clenched his fists and his face turned pale. Originally, if these two parties were to fight together, Jingyu and the rest wouldn't have the confidence to win. However, Boss Lei's party was already dead. Only Zhuorong's party was left. "Have you had your fill?" Jingyu turned her head and looked at Zhuorong. She smiled and said, "Now, you still want me to be your mistress?" Ha ha ha. Zhuorong's expression changed slightly. Then, he laughed heartily and jumped off his horse. He bowed slightly to Jingyu and Xiaochen and said, "Madam, you must be joking. Just now, I spoke without thinking." Zhuorong really wanted to slap himself. If he really invited this woman to his mountain stronghold, wouldn't he be massacred? Is that so? Jingyu seemed to be confused. She blinked her eyes and said, "I clearly heard. You asked me if I want to go back to the mountain stronghold with you." "No, absolutely not." Zhuorong refused without even thinking about it. "Ayaya, but I want to go back with you now. What should I do?" Jingyu smiled at Zhuorong and said, "Hubby, what do you think the mountain stronghold looks like? How about we go and take a look?" Xiaochen was speechless. Although he really wanted to refuse, When he heard Jing Yu call him husband and looked at Jing Yu's coquettish expression, he silently nodded his head. Great. Let's go take a look. Jing Yu smiled and turned to look at Zhuorong. This bandit leader, please lead the way. Jing Yu's matter-of-fact expression made Zhuorong's mouth twitch. She suddenly despised her own mouth. Don't tell me you're unwilling? Jing Yu looked at Zhuorong and narrowed her eyes. She slowly touched her wrist. Zhuorong looked at Jing Yu. He remembered that Jing Yu's killing thread was on her wrist. Zhuorong looked at the corpses not far away and finally said through gritted teeth, Why wouldn't I welcome you? Of course, I welcome you. Zhuorong looked very happy. He beckoned everyone to lead the way. He simply treated Jing Yu and Xiao Chun as VIPs. Then, this dignified bandit leader led the horse up the mountain. Along the way, he was very talkative. He helped Jing Yu and Xiao Chun introduce this and that. His eagerness made it impossible for Jing Yu to find a good excuse to kill him. When they reached the entrance of the mountain stronghold, Jing Yu looked at the mountain stronghold that was located halfway up the mountain. Her eyes revealed a look of surprise. She didn't know why, but she suddenly thought of Mu Guiying. The mountain stronghold that she saw on television was no different from this one. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.